So the news today in Britain is essentially that Boris has had to self-isolate himself again because of COVID. So he's been doing Zoom calls with MPs, and Zoom calls anyone can look at them, right? Like at least MPs could look at them or leak things or whatever. And what he said yesterday in a Zoom call with 60 Northern MPs is that the devolution is a disaster. His exact words were a disaster north of the border. So specifically talking about the SNP in Scotland. So he also called it Tony Blair's biggest mistake, which he might be wrong about that. I mean, maybe the Iraq War, if we're being, maybe the biggest British mistake.
Supreme Court.
I
think that was a big mistake.
I don't know. I mean,
Tony Blair had a lot. Mass immigration.
There's a lot of competition.
Mass immigration is Tony Blair's biggest mistake.
Okay. Anyway, and the final thing he said was he does not see a case for handing down more powers from Westminster at this time. Based. Nothing incorrect there.
No, that's true, yeah.
Devolution in Scotland has been a disaster, and the Prime Minister's office and the Conservatives are trying to spin this a little bit. So, where is it? I've got a Downing Street source did not deny that Mr. Johnson said that devolution had been a disaster in Scotland. However, devolution is great, but not when it's used by separatists and nationalists to break up the UK. Almost said EU then.
Yeah.
But it's like...
It's good then.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's no democracy in the EU. Like, in Westminster, you can vote for the MPs, and the MPs vote for the whole thing. So
it's good when we do it, bad when they do it.
Well, you don't have any vote in the EU. So, yeah, it's literally a different system.
But, I mean, that's literally what we were arguing. Devolution is great for us because we're the separatists who want to leave the European Union. So we want devolution.
Like, I can see the desire, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's the same structure. But the irony being the Scottish National Party isn't really a nationalist party.
Yeah, we'll get into some more problems with them in a minute.
I don't mean to interrupt. You go ahead.
So the Downing Street and the Conservatives are going on Sky News today are all trying to spin it like, oh, he's not saying devolution's bad. He's just saying that the SNP is bad. It's like, maybe if you're being charitable to Boris, but to be frank, I imagine, no, I reckon he thinks all devolution is bad. Or at least the ones that Tony Blair did. Because I believe Northern Ireland had some devolution before, and Scotland had some administrative devolution, but the 1997 reform that gave them their own parliament.
Yeah, I think it's the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Parliament he's talking about.
Yeah, those individual parliaments, because that's a perfect breeding ground for separatists. That you can build up these positions that no one really votes for except nationalists.
Yeah.
And
well, even then, it's not even like I can't imagine anyone really seriously describing the Scottish National Party as a nationalist party.
I mean, they do want independence. It's just they want independence from Westminster.
Yeah.
But then they want to be dependent on Brussels, which it's a form of nationalism. I'm not sure what kind.
But even then, when the Scottish National Party described their case, like Sturgeon would be like, well, I kind of regret it being called nationalist.
Yeah, there's the famous quote that if she started a new party for Scottish nationalism, she wouldn't call it the Scottish Nationalist Party because it has right-wing overtones or whatever she said. It's like, well, yeah, it's nationalism. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, so there's been a lot of hub about this. All the devoluted parties are upset, and it's like, well, okay, live with it.
Yeah.
Like,
cry harder. We're about to abolish you. Shut up.
The Scottish Conservative leader is also very upset. He issued a statement saying, devolution has not been a disaster. The SNP's non-stop obsession with another referendum above jobs, schools, and everything else has been a disaster.
But this was an inevitable consequence of devolution.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? So it's also that thing of like he was talking to 60 Northern MPs, and most of them he's just won in the last election, right? And the Scottish Conservatives consist of 6 MPs.
Yeah.
So, like, sorry, lad, but I don't think...
I just don't... I can only assume that the Scots vote for the Scottish National Party just because they're called the Scottish National Party. What other reason is there? Unless the Scots love having the government's boot on their neck.
I mean, maybe... I mean, Scottish independence, when did we have the referendum? Was it 2015? Scottish independence?
14, I think it was.
14? Yeah. So they had, what was it, 45% of the vote, 55% for not going independent.
Yeah.
And the polling on this has only gotten more and more pro-independence, pro-SNP.
Yeah.
And they've correlated. So I guess it is just this view of, I want independence, therefore I vote SNP, regardless of what else they want.
Yeah.
Because we'll get into the other things they're doing. But you can make a case that you could say that therefore we ought to have another referendum and whatnot. But we did have the whole agreement in 2014 that this was a once in a lifetime or once in a generation, depending on who you're quoting. So, not going to happen.
I mean, I honestly think that Boris should be playing 4D chess with this.
What do you
And
mean?
say, we are going to have a vote on Scottish independence. England and Wales will vote on Scottish independence, and then watch them go, well, hang on, you can't do that. No, we may well give you everything you want. Or we just return to the status quo where you're in exactly the same place. You lose nothing if we vote to kick you out of the union.
I do wonder, because I think the SNP higher-ups do genuinely want independence, but it's that thing of, like, we want independence, but under us.
Yep.
And
what it is just eternal adversarialism towards the English. That's what it is. And so if Boris were to frame it being like the English are going to kick you out, they would be demanding. I reckon they would literally demand.
No, can't let the English do it.
That's a terrible Scottish accent.
I wasn't actually trying to.
But I think you could get them to essentially reverse their position by threatening to throw them.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Anyway. So John Redwood has made a statement about this. John Redwood's a Conservative MP. Is also great because his blog's just great Conservative content.
Right, okay.
So his statement on this was that the SNP have only ever wanted to use devolution to destroy the union of the UK.
True.
They have not used devolution powers to improve public services or the growth rate in Scotland.
Correct.
The SNP see the Scottish Parliament as a battering ram against the UK.
Totally correct.
Absolutely right. I mean, not a jot wrong. And this is the same with the Welsh separatists, Plaid Cymru. And what's interesting is both of these nationalist parties, the ones in Wales and in Scotland, are just... I don't even know... Like, I don't want to call them just socialists or leftists or any of this type, but it's that SJW pole of
they're woke.
Of depression.
They're woke sort of national socialists.
Yeah, definitely national socialists.
But they are like woke national socialists. It's actually quite an accurate description of the policies they promote.
It's like the guy you met from UKIP who used to do UKIP Scotland. Like, that was his description of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so his claim is that they're not really doing anything for Scotland. They're just endlessly whining about the English and wanting independence.
Yeah.
And, well, there is evidence for this. If you can get the first video up, if that's possible. So Andrew Neil's been doing great stuff on this, just blowing SNP politicians out every time they come on the show, because he's just like, well, why are you not doing your job? So this is him asking Nicola Sturgeon about the health situation in Scotland, which I believe they have full control over, and also it's free in Scotland.
Yeah, because we pay for it.
Yes.
As we come to then, let's look at your record in health. You said all Scottish patients, 100%, should start receiving treatment within 12 weeks. Did you wrote that guarantee into law when you were health secretary, the longest serving health secretary? What proportion of patients are getting treatment within 12 weeks?
We're not meeting that target. It's below, it's the 80% or so. It should be 95%.
72%.
But we're not meeting that target. We're not meeting...
You hit 72.
Indeed, it is not good enough. But all health services are undergoing pressure from increased demand. Scotland is no different.
Only 2 of your 8 waiting time targets being hit. You've been in for a long while. You haven't hit the A&E target since 2017. The 2-month cancer target you haven't hit since 2013. Children are dying in a new Glasgow hospital because the water's contaminated, perhaps by pigeon droppings. A new multi-million-pound Edinburgh hospital, should have opened in 2012, is still unfit to open. You can't even get the ventilation system to work. You've got the worst drug addiction problem in Europe, but you cut drug treatment budgets by 15 million. You clung on to your last health minister. You're under pressure now to sack a successor. I mean, you've called for legislation to protect the NHS from Donald Trump. Maybe the NHS needs legislation to protect it from Nicola Sturgeon.
Her face throughout the entirety of that was gold.
Yeah,
absolute gold.
I'll link the full interview in the clips we do.
Yeah,
I didn't include her response because it was worthless. She was just waffling and waffling.
Yeah.
I don't care. But the first part there, she actually passed a law when she was health minister that 100% of patients should get treatment within the first 12 weeks.
Right.
And then failed.
Yeah.
It's like, Nicola, you broke your own law. Anyway, the next one is about poverty in Scotland. So if you can get the next video.
The SNP is winning the centre ground of Scottish politics because we have made the case that we need more powers to deal with the issues that we are dealing with. And we've got an election coming up in May where we're putting our candidates together just now. We're putting our manifesto together. And it'll be for the people of Scotland to decide how best we are governed and how best our constitutional future is represented. And the problems Scotland has, we don't shy away from, but we need all the tools to fix them.
All right. Andrew?
There's not a single tool that you need to solve poverty in the east end of Glasgow that you don't already have. You're entirely in charge of the education system. You control the education system in Scotland, and yet the attainment gap between rich and poor kids has got wider. So it's not a matter of power, it's a matter of policy and giving it priority.
to make sure that a country like Scotland, which has always prided itself in poor kids getting a decent education, lives up to its historic record and not what's happening now.
Anyway, like hitting them on their own standards.
Yeah.
But it's this thing of, absolutely John Redwood is right. They're just interested in another referendum, leaving the UK, that any of the targets they set themselves for any of the, day-to-day management things of politics and governance, they're not able to reach. So... And this is why I can see Dankula hating them so much. He's like, yeah, he's also an independence guy, but he absolutely hates the SNP and does not want them to be in charge.
Well, he actually means independence when he says independence. The Scottish National Party mean a vassal of Europe. I mean,
but it's not just the EU. I know. Like for you, that's a huge point. But it's the day-to-day stuff. I mean, failing on education, failing on healthcare, even when you're health minister for God knows how long. Anyway, we got the next one as well, just to hit home. I know a lot of people have seen this clip, but I wanted to replay it just to remind people how woke they are. So this is I think he's the Justice Minister.
Why are we so surprised when the most senior positions in Scotland are filled almost exclusively by those who are white? Take my portfolio alone. The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The head of the Law Society, white. The head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every prison governor, white. And not just justice. The Chief Medical Officer, white. The Chief Nursing Officer, white. The Chief Veterinary Officer, white. The Chief Social Work Advisor, white. Almost every trade union in this country headed by people who are white. In the Scottish Government, every Director General is white. Every chair of every public body is white. That is not good enough. So don't just tweet Black Lives Matters. Don't post, or don't just post a hashtag. Don't just take the knee. As people of colour, we don't need your gestures. Yes, solidarity is helpful, but what we need from you is action, and for you to be anti-racist by your deeds. Don't just tell us how you are not a racist. I take that as a bare minimum. You must be anti-racist.
I love how he's annexing himself into the black race.
Yeah, I love the way that he's just adopted the mantle of Black Lives Matter. It's like, sorry, King, but you're not black.
So that's Humza Yousaf. He's also the one who's, what is he? He's introducing new blasphemy laws against political correctness, whilst getting rid of religious blasphemy laws. Yeah,
and I find it very interesting. It's like, white. It's like, Humza, I've got some bad news for you. It's even worse than you think. They're Scottish. Like, it's like they're not all the same, us white people. There are differences, Humza. And at the end of the day, Scotland is 96% Scottish, white Scottish. What were you expecting, buddy?
Yeah, his complaint is essentially that government reflects demographics, which, interesting complaint.
I mean, representation, I thought, was a positive attribute that the progressives wanted.
Nah, not when it doesn't suit him.
But, everyone always comments on the venom he seems to have when he's spitting the word white. I mean, he really does seem to be taking this as a massive moral judgment. Scotland's full of white people. Puh. It's like... Stop being a racist, Humza.
To be honest, in his favour there, I think that might just be the Scottish accent being particularly coarse on the ears.
I think he's got I think he's got a real disdain for white people there. He seems to. That's how it comes across to me anyway.
I'm trying to be charitable, but you're probably right.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you could load up the last thing, which was I think I sent you the link to the Plaid Cymru leader's Twitter, Leanne Wood. But this is to make the point that this is what Boris is referring to. Like, you can keep arguing about independence, maybe you're for it, maybe you're against it. I mean, just look at the state of that. Like, just read the bio.
So, Leanne Wood, Plaid Cymru, can't read that Cthulhu language after it. Representing the Rhondda, that's where my mum's family comes from. The Rhondda Valleys. It's nice. I went there not so long ago. It's nice. Very quiet, peaceful. No coal mining left anymore. But Welsh European. Welsh European, right? Okay. Socialist, feminist, anti-fascist, environmentalist, Republican, she, her, Cymraeg. Right. The absolute state of Plaid Cymru.
This is the state of nationalism of the separatists. Like, at least UKIP were based. What is this? What am I even looking at? Ugh. But yeah, this is what Boris is referring to, because it's not just
nationalism.
Yeah. I mean, you could ask for independence. I mean, Dankula's an independence guy. He wants, I could describe him as a Scottish nationalist.
Yeah.
Through. And there might be a lot of people in Scotland who do want independence. I mean, just looking at the polls.
Genuine independence, yeah.
But what are you electing? I mean, these are the kind of people who will actually be in charge.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want this?
The eternal midwit.
It's like the Brexiteers. Like, let's say it wasn't UKIP who rose, and instead, because there were a lot of, socialist, communist Brexiteers. Let's say it was George Galloway's
Corbyn.
Workers' Party of Britain,
Yeah.
which was 20% in the polls instead, and they were the leaders of Brexit. As a Brexiteer, would you vote for them to be in power after Brexit?
I mean, I wouldn't be thrilled about it, but if they were the only pro-Brexit option, what options do you
Still
have?
think so?
Well, no, I'm saying if they were the only party who were like, we're going to get Brexit done, and the Conservatives and Labour and Plaid Cymru were like, no, we're all Remainers, Brexiteers are evil. I mean, what choice would we have?
Oh, dude, I wouldn't.
I don't think he'd win. But if if the question was Brexit, I mean, what are we going to do?
I'd rather be in the European Union than unironic communists in charge of the UK.
But there's a difference between Galloway and modern wokeism.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying Galloway specifically. I was getting more, left-wing Brexiteers who are far left.
Yeah, I mean, like if Jeremy Corbyn sort of thing. Like,
there we go.
But I mean, I really wanted Brexit.
Okay, so you're one of these hardline radicals.
I am a hardline Brexiteer. Yeah. Furthermore, the European
hardline independence types. You can see where they're coming from, but.
I mean, I wouldn't be happy about it, but furthermore, the European Union must be destroyed. So,
yeah, but if you're not going to get independence with them, or you weren't going to get Brexit, would you want these people to have more and more power?
No,
which is exactly what Boris is getting at.
But notice that it is, and notice that this is exactly what one of the Scottish people were saying. They were just saying, "We need more power. We need more power." And Andrew Neil was like, "No, you have all the power you need."
Yeah.
But this thing, it's just ever increasing size of government, ever increasing reach of government.
Well, not necessarily here, because they're just handing over powers from Westminster to Holyrood instead of a larger reach. I'm sure they'll take it further.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Just in that transaction.
Yeah.
But the interesting point you said with Andrew Neil is, like, we keep giving you things. So we gave you complete control over education, and the SNP completely messed it up.
Yep.
Give you complete control over healthcare, and you guys messed it up. Of course Boris is not going to want to give you more power. So... based Boris actually saying something right for once.
And constantly independence.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but why is this to anyone's advantage? Like, whose interest are you serving?